flight over the clouds. Sun was coming down, really smooth. Was flying with Gary, good flying buddy, so really nice flight. But it put me over the 10-hour mark. So today we're going to be doing the 10-hour maintenance on the Maverick Parajet Atom 80. You can see 10.6 hours there.
Vitarazi has the Atom 80 manual, just online, real easy to get to, and basically talk about what they want to do at certain times, certainly during the break-in, which I've already done, of course, and then after the first 10 hours, basically going through, just checking everything, spark plug, tightening all the screws, we'll check the head bolts, and so far everything that I've been pre-flighting has been just fine. And then of course they have all the torque measurements, which again, you'll need that torque wrench. And we've got the Parajet tools here. Again, this came with the Maverick, not the torque wrench. That was mine. And we'll see if we can do everything with just the tools they provided.
Okay, we're going to start out. First of all, I am going to take off the prop. You don't really have to, as far as I've been told, but it just makes it easier to get it out of the way. It always seems to be in the way somewhere. This is going to be a little bit more complicated than my top 80, but a lot simpler than the Nirvana I had. I've got to take off the shroud, which is not as easy to get to the head bolts, and we're just going to basically tighten everything. So first of all, we'll get all the equipment off that needs to be coming off. Okay, the prop is off, obviously very straightforward. Now we're going to take out the gear reduction device here, and there's going to be 4 bolts we're going to remove right here and here. We're not going to touch these bolts, and so we'll get that off. And that was something I did install when the Maverick came in. That wasn't on originally. When you receive your Maverick, you put that on, and then you put in the gear oil. The gear oil is not going to be changed now. I believe that's after 25 hours you put in some fresh gear oil right there. So we'll get that off. The gear reduction is off. You can see that right there. Pretty easy, simple, straightforward. 4 bolts to remove, and that's it. Keep everything separate over here. All our bolts and little trays so we don't lose it, which I've had a habit of doing in the past, so I have learned. All right, now we're going to take out the shroud. Now, this is a little bit more involved than, again, the top 80. And I kind of compare everything to the top 80 because that was just so simple. But again, not that this is hard, it's just different. So I'm going to have to remove these bolts, get the shroud off, obviously remove our spark plug cap here. And you can see the little attachments here. And so we're going to get all that off, and then we can get to the head bolts. Okay, so I've got all the bolts out here. There's a few, so you just want to go around and make sure you got all the bolts out. And from there, we're just going to remove our spark plug cap. So now the shroud cover is off, as you can see. Not difficult. There's the cylinder head. There's the bolts. And before we do anything else, just going to put a little covering over that opening where the spark plug goes into the cylinder, just to make sure nothing gets in there, like some loose bolt. that I might drop in there. So we got the plug out, and you can see here or I don't know how well you can see it. It seems to me that's a little bit light, and it's running just a little bit lean. I had already enriched it a bit after going to the 66-to-1 gas to oil. So I'm going to enrich it just another 1/8 turn and see if that helps. It's a little better than it was, but it's pretty light. And so I'm not running hot, according to my temp probe. So, but nonetheless, I'm going to enrich that a little bit, and then we'll see how that works. And here's my temp probe here. Okay, so these are 10mm nut. They say I have a little extension on here that I needed to get in there, but everything torqued. I say I need to do 2 hands, but everything torqued to 10 Newton meters. It was just a little bit loose, so all around it just went to 10 Newton meters. And again, the good news is that they were on there pretty tight. Did need a little bit of tightening, but not much. Okay, so the cylinder head nuts are tightened. I might have been saying bolts previously. I apologize for that. But anyway, again, they were not very loose, but they did tighten a bit, so that's good. Now I'm just going to kind of go through and check all the other nuts and bolts and just make sure everything's looking good. So obviously you don't need to see me do all that, but I'm going to clean off areas where I can. Again, not a lot of oil. I've seen the only thing I had in the past was a little bit of oil here that stained that muffler, but it hasn't occurred again. I did one other time, very little bit, and I cleaned it off, but my last flight yesterday was it was an hour and no oil. So it seems to have sealed up just quite nicely. So we're going to go ahead and just tighten everything up and put everything back on. Pretty simple. Word of warning. I was screwing this back in. I gave it one little turn too many, and it broke off that bolt. So these do not need to be really tightened. Just a nice snug fit. Luckily, I can back off that portion that broke off, and I should be able to use what was left. You can see here. It broke off right there. I should be able to get that in. It will still be able to screw in just fine. But, so, do not tighten this too tight, and you won't do what I did. Okay, everything is back on. Prop is on. Production drive is back on. Everything went together just nice. Again, not a real complicated procedure. But even I managed to screw a little something up. I did put a little Loctite on there, some blue Loctite, and I'll get a new part if that's available, just to make sure. It's on there pretty securely. I don't think it's going to come off at all. It shouldn't go into the prop. If this comes off, it's still held on by the spark plug cap, but there's no way to really zip tie that on there. I'd have to put some sort of some other attachment, but I don't know if I want to do that because that could come off. So I'm just going to leave that for now. It looks pretty secure, and we'll start it up and make sure it still works. Yes, the Parajet Maverick Atom 80 is still running great. As I've said in my last two videos, I really like this paramotor. Nothing's perfect. Certainly the Maverick is not perfect. What would I wish I had? Maybe a little more power, and that's just for climbing. Electric start, oh, that's always fun. But you really don't need it for this. It's just kind of one of those, gosh, nice to have. But the 100-hour inspection is now done. Pretty easy, straightforward. Really appreciate the fact that I don't have to take so many things off the engine just to get to something like the carburetor, which I've had to do in past paramotors. Paramotoring is just a fantastic form of aviation. I can pack my small aircraft in the back of my car with its lightweight wing, take off from a short runway, and soon be up in the air, suspended in space, above the clouds, flying and seeing sights that very few people have had the privilege of seeing. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy the videos, feel free to subscribe. But if you enjoy watching them just half as much as I enjoy making them, then it's been worthwhile. Happy flights.